Kirkbride Mental Health Hospital, built in 1871, is being turned into a town hall and renovated after being closed for nearly 15 years in 1985. Hazmat Elimination Company, an asbestos removal team led by Gordon Fleming and his partner Phil, who is dealing with a recent breakup, are the first to begin work on the building. The film opens with a light-hearted tour of the asylum, led by Bill Griggs, as Gordon and Phil get their first look at the old hospital. They are told that even though the hospital was shut down, some former patients still return. They enter a room covered with pictures of patients, which Bill explains was used for seclusion. The photos were meant to help patients feel better about themselves and more at home. While exploring the creepy rooms and a strange hallway, Gordon hears a voice calling out to him but is brought back to reality by Phil. Needing money badly, Gordon promises to finish the job in 1 week, even though it would normally take 2 to 3 weeks. After the unsettling mood is set, the scene cuts to Gordon sitting alone in his truck, looking at photos of his newborn daughter and watching his wife and child playing outside their home. The moment is tender but is suddenly interrupted by terrifying screams and an eerie sense that something may be wrong in Gordon's family. The film then introduces Gordon's team: Hank, a gambling addict; Jeff, Gordon's nephew who has a deep fear of the dark; and Mike, a former law student whose father, a district attorney, was partly responsible for the asylum's closure in 1984 after a lawsuit filed by a patient. Mike, who knows a lot about the hospital's history, tells the others a disturbing story about a family who once did something horrific to their children inside the asylum. As the men begin their work, Jeff is using a lawn mower when it suddenly stops, and they discover the machine has been unplugged from the breaker box. Since Jeff is too afraid to go into the dark basement, Mike goes instead to reconnect the power. While there, he explores and finds a box in an office containing 9 old audio tapes of therapy sessions. The recordings are of Mary Hobbs, a former patient who suffered from dissociative identity disorder. Over the following days, Mike listens to the tapes, where Mary's psychologist tries to uncover the truth behind a crime she committed at her home 20 years earlier. On the tapes, Mary reveals several distinct personalities, each with its own voice and behavior. Meanwhile, Hank stumbles upon a stash of antique silver dollar coins and other valuables from the 1800s inside the crematory. Just as Gordon calls him for lunch, Hank quickly hides the coins inside a wall, which turns out to be part of the old morgue. Mike starts sneaking away from work to go downstairs and secretly listen to the recorded therapy sessions. Gordon tries to call his wife, Wendy, to talk about their past, but she hangs up before he can say much. Shortly after, Gordon sees Phil talking to 2 unknown men outside the building, which makes him suspicious. That night, Phil returns to the crematory to retrieve the hidden items and discovers a lobotomy pick among them. As he gathers the items and prepares to leave, he hears unsettling noises and sees a shadowy figure. Suddenly, he is confronted by an unknown assailant. The next day, when Hank doesn't show up for work, Phil calls Hank's wife, Amy, and learns that Hank supposedly traveled to Miami to attend casino school. However, Gordon finds this hard to believe, and he confronts Phil about the 2 men he saw him speaking with the day before. This sparks tension between them, and Gordon storms off angrily. As the week goes on, Gordon becomes increasingly irritable. He tries calling Wendy to apologize, but she doesn't answer. Tension builds as Gordon's troubled relationship with his distant wife is revealed. At the same time, Phil's frustration with Gordon starts to show more openly, and Mike gets closer to finishing the therapy sessions with Mary Hobbs. The number 444 begins to appear more frequently, on doors, tombstones, and other objects, adding to the film's unsettling atmosphere. Later, Gordon eventually confides in Phil, revealing that after their initial tour of the asylum, his wife accidentally splashed him with boiling water, and in a moment of rage, he slapped her. Since then, she has refused to answer his calls or let him see their baby daughter. In response, Phil tells Gordon what he and the unknown men had discussed, and with Hank gone, a new worker named Craig McManus is hired to take his place. That night, Gordon dreams about the moment he hit his wife and sees his work suit soaked in blood. He wakes up disturbed and applies a chemical ointment to the burn on his lap, the injury caused by the boiling water. The next day, Gordon meets with Phil, who informs him that Craig will be joining the team the following day. Sensing something is wrong, Phil asks Gordon if he's okay, and Gordon simply replies that he wants to go home. Later on, Phil goes to Mike and shares his concern, suggesting that Gordon could use some time off and that Phil should take over as team lead. But what they don't realize is that Gordon is standing nearby, listening. He then confronts them, but both Phil and Mike lie and quickly change the subject. Meanwhile, while using the lawn mower, it suddenly stops, so Jeff heads down to the breaker box to reconnect the machine's cable. On his way back upstairs, he unexpectedly runs into Hank in a stairwell. Hank is staring out a window, talking to himself in a dazed state. Jeff grows uneasy as Hank keeps asking him the same question over and over. When Jeff notices blood on Hank's fingers, he panics and runs off to tell the others. After convincing them of what he saw, the group follows Jeff back to the stairwell, but when they arrive, Hank is gone. Phil dismisses Jeff's claim, insisting that Hank is in Miami. However, Gordon intervenes. He demands to check the call history with Amy on Mike's phone, but Phil tries to stop him. It's then revealed that Phil lied. Hank never went to Miami. Phil made up the story to push Hank out and bring Craig in as his replacement. Suddenly, the group hears strange noises echoing through the building. With tensions running high between Phil and Gordon, the men decide to split up and search the hospital for Hank. Mike goes with Gordon to search the upper floors, while Jeff teams up with Phil to check the tunnels beneath the hospital. As they head upstairs, Mike claims he hears a noise coming from the basement and decides to check it out alone, but instead, he returns to the office to continue listening to the therapy tapes. Meanwhile, Jeff and Phil descend into the dark tunnels. Phil ventures deeper into the underground passageways while Jeff stays behind, waiting near the entrance. As Phil moves further in, he finds Hank, who is muttering to himself in a disoriented state. Suddenly, the generator runs out of fuel, plunging the building into darkness. Terrified, Jeff is left stranded in the pitch-black tunnels, and the tape player Mike was using also shuts off. At the same time, Gordon begins hearing strange voices calling out to him. He follows the voice down a hallway leading to Ward 3. Mike eventually leaves the office to refuel the generator, and once the power is restored, he continues listening to the 9th and final therapy tape. In the recording, it is revealed that one of Mary Hobbs's violent personalities, named Simon, was the one responsible for murdering her family. Using the walkie-talkie, Phil contacts Gordon about his location, and goes to meet him inside Mary's former hospital room. Gordon is standing still, staring at photos from his daughter's baptism, which he has pasted all over the wall. Meanwhile, Jeff escapes from the tunnels and makes his way outside to the company van. As he radios Gordon to share his location, he tries to catch his breath, but is suddenly attacked by an unseen assailant. The following day, Gordon returns to the hospital and discovers Hank wrapped in plastic sheeting in one of the rooms, a lobotomy pick sticking out of his eye. As he stares in shock, Phil appears and repeatedly tells him to wake up before vanishing into thin air. Meanwhile, the new worker, Craig, arrives and walks in on Gordon standing over Hank, who is still barely alive. Suddenly, Gordon attacks Craig, pulling the lobotomy pick from Hank's eye and stabbing it into Craig's. In a dissociated and broken state, Gordon begins wandering through the hospital, slowly realizing the horrifying truth. He finds the bodies of each of his co-workers in separate rooms and remembers killing them one by one.
I got these in a bin. Is that okay?
The full weight of his actions crashes down as he also recalls murdering his wife Wendy, their infant daughter, and their dog after Wendy accidentally spilled boiling water on him. Shattered by guilt and confusion, Gordon picks up a broken phone and tries to call home, mumbling an apology to Wendy. As he does, the 9th therapy tape plays over the scene. Mary's doctor asks, "And where do you live, Simon?" To which Simon chillingly replies, "I live in the weak and the wounded," and the film concludes. Okay guys, that's all the recap about Session 9 from 2001. Thanks for watching. See you again in the next video.